I have, if you go to the next slide, you'll see, actually, I'll go orient myself this way, move the camera that way. If you go to the next slide, so what we'll go through, I'll just tell you a little bit about me. I'll tell you a little bit about Target as a brand and as a culture, and then I'll go into digital marketing and analytics and just like my experience. And so just to call out that while I work at Target, this presentation is not an affiliate or a representation, for proprietary reasons. All of this is public information, nothing's confidential, all of those kinds of things. So I can share this with you as just me as Chelsea with my career, my learnings, all of those kinds of things. And then we'll be reporting for all of the people that can attend tonight. So a little bit about me. We go to the next slide. Again, I'm born and raised Minnesotan. I went to University of St. Thomas for my undergrad, and then I went to Bethel for my grad for my MBA program. My family in the middle, my center, so I have 3 young kids. My husband and I, we've got a 7-year-old, 5-year-old, and 2-year-old. So at home we're busy, at work we're busy, at life we're busy, but we love every single moment of it. And then my career, so I've been in marketing my entire career. I've been in advertising sales, I've been in loyalty marketing, digital marketing. I've been in digital marketing for about 6 years. And I really specialize in audience segmentation as well as just media performance analytics. And my current role at Target is Director of Performance and Insights, which is, I lead a team of about a dozen analysts who represent Target's media results to our clients. So I work with the P&Gs, the Pepsis, the Cokes, the Unilevers of the world. They come to Target, they want to advertise with Target. And so my team does all of the analysis and reporting for all of the advertising that they run with Target. And then I also have some experience over at Best Buy too. So I call myself a retail marketer at heart. I love retail. I love the data, the amount of data and what you can do with it, which I'll kind of touch on a little bit later. I'm also on the Bethel's National Alumni Board. So after I graduated, I wanted to stay connected because I love this university, and I got the opportunity to join that board, which is a pretty cool group of people. I'm also on the Audience and Measurement Committee for the IAB. So IAB is the Interactive Advertising Bureau, and it helps create North Stars in the advertising industry for how the industry thinks about audience segmentation or thinks about the ad technology, thinks about what do we do with all these data privacy laws, and then how do we change our strategy and tech systems to accommodate that, as well as methodology. So what's the right way to measure media based on a variety of different types of ways. And then my home church, Riverdale, it's a church in Andover that my family and I go to. We're pretty actively involved there as well. So that's me in a nutshell. So Target as a brand and as a culture. So I know this is no news for you all who have taken Teddy Ann's course as you're in week 5, but culture is really critical for Target when it comes to the types of branding, and also the way that we handle internally from a team member employee standpoint too. So for Target, there's those different ways to create a culture. There's reputation, there's symbolic, there's relationships, all of those things. And so Target kind of weaves into those depending on the circumstance for how we're talking to the guests, how we're building strategies, those kinds of things. And so internal speak guest is customer to Target. I think you all know that from being Minnesotan. But so the 3 anchors that Target has really held onto throughout its entity or its entirety is affordability. So less steep discounts, more everyday affordable pricing. I think we all see that with the Circle loyalty app, where providing all everyday low prices. There's also ease. So providing access to the way you want to shop for us as consumers. How do we want to get our goods? Do we want to get them online? Do we want to get them in store? Do you have young kids and don't want to get your kids out of a car seat? So you want to drive up and pick up those items. So Target's been very intentional about building multiple ways to create access for the guest and for the consumer. Also, what they have in the stores. So Target stemmed off a department store, and then it moved into more of this this type of retailer where we've got food, we've got beauty, we've got electronics, we've got apparel, we've got home. So it creates that one-stop shop that is really critical to Target success. And very early on in the company creation, the intentionality of how it's built to the point that it is has been driven by kind of the culture and the meaning behind it. And then trend and style. So as I mentioned, we stem from a department store, Dayton's, and so style, being trendy, always kind of fashion forward has always been a staple at Target. And so you'll see that in their own brands. And so Target's strategy of owned brands is kind of one of the first in class in terms of how it's really taken the own brand strategy and not just be a private label, but it be a market name and a full-blown, like you can buy All in Motion at Target or Cat and Jack, and you automatically associate it to Target, or you see Target and you think Cat and Jack, that's the kids brand that they've got. And so it all kind of interweaves together. Any questions there? I know you guys are working on a project right now. So if you have any questions relating to branding, to the staples of that company, I know Teddy, if you have.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a little bit, just a real quick history. Target was started in 1963, 63 or 64, something like that, a long time ago. And it was affordability. That was its key point. When I started working for Target in 1979, okay, it was still focusing on affordability. And it was understanding that trend and style was important. So we used to joke about how we would find merchandise at a Target store that was also at Dayton's. But nobody knew it, and because Target shoppers shop at Target and Dayton shoppers shop at Dayton. It wasn't until the early 80s that Target understood from a brand persona that its core competency was trend and style. And it dramatically started changing, and I think I mentioned this in one of the lectures that I gave you. It dramatically started to change how it was talking about itself. Its ads changed from just saying, this is what's on sale this week, to trend, style, trend, style, trend, style. What is so cool about this is the natural progression after all these years. You think about how old Target is that they have pushed it out into these individual brands, each of which can stand alone. There are people who don't know that Cat and Jack is Target's brand. Now, less and less now, but when Cat and Jack was first introduced, people thought it was just another brand that Target brought in. And so Target has been consistent over all of these years of those three core competencies. Yeah.
Then getting into
Go next one.
Next slide, yeah. How you see Target's advertising come to life, and Teddy Ann touches this in the lectures too, but it's all about stories and storytelling. And we use a lot of data and data points to figure out what are the stories that resonate and mean the most to our guests and to people who aren't our guests. And so just a raise of hands, how many people walk into Target with one thing on their list and come out with 10 plus? Yeah, you can all raise your hand. We're all in that crew. How many people have used the term Target boutique? Yep. Yeah, friends say that, all of that. And so that starts with people. That didn't start with Target, that started with people. And I think that's what Target's done such a good job of, is they've listened to their guests and they've listened and looked at all of this data of what are the stories that are gonna mean most and represent Target. And so I screenshotted these from Target's Instagram post, since visually it's the best way to represent, but I think we all can, if you are a Target lover, I also shop at Walmart and Amazon, it's okay. But these are real, these are stories that people resonate. You see it in the comments, right? When people are like, oh yeah, I just went into Target and I, thought I was buying one thing and I bought 15 and my bill was this or whatever. And so we all resonate with that. We all connect to each other through that human experience. And that's what Target's really, really good at. So then getting into my world a little bit of how I interact with this is, yep. If you just, not as pretty as Target's marketing, but there's so many channels that a company and a brand works within from a digital marketing standpoint. So these are just the high level essentials when it comes to the types of presence that companies have on the internet. Across the world, there's about 6 billion devices that belong to people, and all of us are doing different things with it and interacting differently in that. We probably have similar behaviors, right? Where we find something, we're wanting to research something, so we go to Google, or we want inspiration, so we go to Pinterest, we go to a site. And how many of us get annoyed when you go on a site on your phone and it's not mobile friendly, right? And so it's all so important to make sure that your essentials are built for those environments and that you're able to have breadth of marketing channels or digital marketing channels while also being consistent. So what's that story? What's that culture? What's that brand that you're trying to convey? But for Target, and I think you'll find this in your marketing projects, or if you're doing digital analytics, is there's different types of people, there's different personas, there's different segmentation. And so while you have to have a consistent segmentation, you're still talking to different groups of people based on their needs and based on what they care about in different ways. And Target does that too while maintaining a consistent story. So as I mentioned, 6 billion devices. I found a crazy stat that we as people per second create about 1.5 megabytes of content digitally. And I tried to figure out what physically that meant in terms, so it means, and I won't get the stat right, so for all of the like super stat people, if you think about it in physical terms, it could be up to 40,000 pieces of paper per second of what we're all creating. And so when you think about that, so much data is going into digital marketing that as marketers, we have to figure out what to do with it, what does it mean, and then how do we use it. And so going into the next slide, this reviews just a little bit of how you create a digital strategy, and all of it stems from data and insights. So from a data standpoint, like I mentioned, billions of touch points. Target has a lot. They have in-store, app, mobile, social, e-commerce, all of these points of data that they're collecting, that you have to figure out how to process it. You have to figure out how to aggregate it. You have to figure out how to organize it so that you can create meaning. And so in your data analysis class, you don't have to build the databases that do they have to build databases?
No.
Okay, you're given databases, but there's engineers that have to create those for the marketer to be able to do those research analytics and to pull meaning and to pull recommendations out of. So it all starts with that massive pool of data and making sure that you're categorizing it in the way that you need to. And then you look at the data and say, what is it revealing to us? So from a digital marketing standpoint, what does a click on Facebook mean versus what does a video completion mean when you're on a streaming device watching an ad. All of those different points. You have to figure out what's the data mean, and then you go into insight. Why? What's the data telling me, and why is it telling me that? Why did someone buy on Pinterest versus buy on an HGTV ad? So you have to look at both the data that you're analyzing, but also look at what are the external forces around that data that could be influencing that specific data point or metric that you're working with. And with that, what are you going to do with it? So why is it doing, what's it doing? Why is it doing that? And then what am I going to do with it? So how do I use that why to build on improvements, to determine the next steps? And that's when you're creating your strategy to figure out, based on, I'm going to use Rosewood as an example. People are confused with who's the company, who's the brand here. The insights and the data and the way that they're collecting that to create meaning and the why helps them build a strategy for what they're going to do next about how they're going to go about branding. We do that in our world just the same way. And then you got to test and you got to learn, because strategies are not final. They are living. And so you have to always be in that mindset of testing, learning, and sometimes you win, sometimes you fail. A fail is still a win. And then you go back into testing. I'm gonna pause here. Any questions?
Questions can come from our Zoom viewers also. I told her that you guys were the most amazing class and would be full of interesting questions. Do not let me down.
All right, I have one question.
Thank
When you mentioned the 40,000 papers, I was just thinking of like bringing in a lot of new data, I assume, every day. So like, is there like a weighted scale? I don't know, like, again, I'm not very rehearsed in marketing, but just old data versus new data. Like, how do you, I don't know, like how you can explain just like what's more important, or like, all right, this information 2 months ago not valuable anymore because we've got all this new data. You know what I mean? Like, how do you scale and like weight like what's important and what's not?
I'm going to give like the classic marketing, like it depends, but that's where data science and data engineering and technology come into play. So you can compress massive data into small bites. And so we're going a little creepy visual, but like think of the matrix where you see the black screen with the green type. Like it gets down to that simple 0 and 1 level. And that's kind of technical, but I think you see it in the data analysis class, right? Where like you have a key and, first grade is 1, second grade is 2, third grade is 3. And the data processing for that goes down significantly. So sizing you can compress. In terms of retention, so do I keep 2 months? Do I keep 6 months? I'll say for Target, or like thinking about like the consumer mindset, right? So you're buying Kleenexes or you're buying frequency items. You don't need as much data to build a trend, right? Because you could have a year's worth of data and be able to trend out and build insight off of that. Dyson, iPads, those kinds of things, the purchase cycle of those could be 2 to 3 years. So if Nintendo's launching a new, I'm not gonna do that, right? If Sony's launching a PS4 or 5 or whatever generation they're on, you want years of data, because then you can understand loyalty, you can understand I need to retain the previous PS4, PS3 buyers. I also want to know who's bought the video games, because that's such a wonderful bolt-on to, and a necessary bolt-on to like engage with that hardware. So timing differences depending on the product, but
Lauren, that's a key question.
that's a really good question.
It is, because one of the things that makes it so hard to determine what you're going to use for your data analytics is that we have constant flow of data in. It used to be it was discrete. You know, there'd be a batch of data that came in and then you wouldn't have anything for a while. But now we have this constant, you know, flood of data that comes in. And you need an interaction between the data scientists that know how to manipulate it and how to work with it, and the marketing people who know what kind of information and insights that they need to have conversations in how to prioritize. So excellent question. Thank you for asking it.
Any other questions? I can show a little bit how this comes to life in the next slide. If you think about just in the mindset of a single media campaign, or like a Target holiday, or like a back to school season, or those kinds of things, if it wants to. Otherwise, I can drop.
Okay, now why is it not letting me switch slides? Hold on. Sorry, folks, I gotta stop sharing for a minute to see what happened.
Hey, Kelsey, I got a question.
Good, thank you.
Well, this is just because Teddy's down at the moment, but my daughter's going to St. Thomas and she had quite an experience at a local Target. So I was wondering, what Target do you recommend to go to when you're around the St. Thomas area? What's that?
What Target do I recommend when I'm what?
When you're at St. Thomas?
Oh,
You don't have a lot of choices.
yeah, I used to go to the Midway because the Target off Ford Parkway that used to be the Barnes and Nobles wasn't there yet. So I'd go to the Midway one, but I know circumstances are a little different there.
I used to work at the Lake Street Target, and that was the one that got beat up really bad during the riots.
It's
Oh,
It's
that
beautiful.
must have been the one where my daughter was at.
Yep, yeah. But I worked at that store for 4 years.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, hey, you know what? You do it. It worked out fine. All right, now let me.
Bethel gets the first Target store ever, so.
Rosedale, yep, yep. Okay, I think I'm back to sharing again. Let's see what happens.
My short notes. I'm not really good with presentation notes.
Okay, hold on, guys. I think I've got it again. For some reason, it just didn't want to. Yeah, I want to start from the slide. Go ahead. There.
Okay. So thinking in the mindset of a campaign, right? So Target holiday. Target holiday is not a really good one because everyone shops holiday. Back to school, back to college. So it all starts with the target persona, and target not meaning like target company, like your target audience, like your segmentation. And so all of it's about who is that target audience, what are they interested in, and where and why are they interested. So going back to your project, right? So why does a consumer care about this company versus like with the products, the services? What need is that company filling? And then who are these people? So what's their demographic? What's their psychographic? What's their behavioral type information? I'm not saying that it's like you, Teddy, Ann. It's a cohort or a representation of a group of individuals. The digital asset. So what type of content will satisfy the user intent? Is it audio? Is it visual? Is it infographics? Depending on your message, you need to change the tactic that you're doing. So are you going to be, is a display ad with, set type gonna convey a drive up message to get your products at Target? Probably not, because you want to see the experience before you try it. So then Target creates videos for that, how you navigate that experience, those kinds of things. Which channel will that content live, and then which type of platform, and how will the content be distributed? So this is all kind of those marketing essentials. So like, where is the best place for this message to live to have the appropriate response from the user or the viewer of that content? So an example could be, if you want people to buy the product on the spot, probably don't want to have that specific message on linear TV. That is a place that's for awareness, for branding, for like engagement in that way, not I want to click, bring you to the site and purchase. That's more digital display or social e-commerce or things like that. And linear TV is changing a lot, which I'll go into that as well. You all know. And then optimization. So kind of what Teddy Ann was talking about, because we have the ability to, in the moment of a campaign, make changes based on what we care about from a result standpoint. So if I care about sales and I see that certain channels are driving more sales, I'm going to shift my budget. I'm going to shift my marketing budget over to that because I want to optimize those sales. And that seems to be a learning in the moment for growing and engaging with an audience. And then the nudge. So, trying to get into like, what's that step that you wanted them to take, or what do you want them to get out of this message? And sometimes it's not what you intended. And that's okay. And that's how you learn and you analyze, post campaign to say, oh, I thought it was going to do this. It actually did this and it did better. So yay. Or it didn't do great. This is why. And then you kind of go all the way back to that reevaluating the whole cycle again when you plan the next time.
Let's talk a little bit about the nudge, because there are all sorts of different nudges depending on where you are in how that customer is relating to your message and what that message is intended to do.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that a little bit, because this is what it's also old school called the call to action.
Yes, yeah. A nudge could be click here to buy. A nudge could be learn more, but a nudge could also be like those Instagram posts. I just want to start a relationship and I want to have that conversation with the guests, with Target. And so you'll see in some of those posts that I showed, it's nudging or inviting a conversation that creates that relational branding moment between Target and their guests. So it could come in many, many different forms, and it's grown a lot over the years in terms of what you can do.
Because you can measure the impact of these nudges now. Before, it was very difficult to measure the impact of a nudge, but now we can.
Yes.
And so it's exciting because you can have, the intent of this message is to nudge in this way. And then you actually can have data to see, was it a call to action to purchase? So did people put the stuff in their cart? Or was it a call to action to learn more? Did they click through to the site that had the additional information? You can measure that stuff now. When I was a marketing practitioner, it was all cross your fingers and let's see what happens. And it was all a guessing game.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely has its benefits and challenges in terms of the amount of data, but more benefits for sure.
Ready?
Yeah.
It worked.
It did. So I think you all probably feel this as consumers. I feel it outside of being a digital marketer, but these are just some marketing trends that I wanted to share with you guys. Data privacy. So I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen the iPhone commercials or advertisements about, or if you have an iPhone, you've experienced it, right? That I allow this app to track or not track me for personalized ads. That mixed with, California, Colorado, Washington, Maryland, they all have their own data privacy laws when it comes to what can advertisers collect, how can they use it, and how do they have to make that known or transparent to the person that they're collecting that information from. if you go to sites and you have to, that pop-up comes up, like, do you accept these cookies? All of that stemming from new legislation and new privacy laws. And so from a digital marketing standpoint, it's becoming challenging to create holistic pictures of performance because there's limitations for what you can and can't do. And as a marketer, I can with very much certainty say that I don't know that I'm targeting Teddy Ann on Facebook or on Amazon Alexa. I only know guest 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 12 did this or did that, or a cohort of these IDs did that. And so that's what it's all about. It's all about protecting us as consumers, making sure that we're giving a lot of keys to the kingdom, and we want to know what keys we're giving, how we're giving them, and then as advertisers, we have to understand and figure out how to do that. Connected TV. So linear TV would be, you have, you're watching NBC on cable channel 5. That's probably not it. Obviously, I don't watch a lot of cable.
11 in the Twin Cities.
11 in the Twin Cities. I think 5 ABC. So connected TV is like for streaming. So that's Amazon Prime, that's Hulu, that's YouTube TV, all of that. And so we know as consumers that we're starting to prefer those channels, or we're starting to see that tip in channel usage. And this stat here that as marketers, 60% of our digital video budgets are shifting away from TV, linear TV, and into what we call connected TV. That brings about a lot of different new channels to measure and design and figure out how does a Hulu guest want to be reached versus how does a Peacock Plus guest want to be reached, and then having the right kind of partnerships to be able to measure all of that too. Influencer marketing, I forgot the R. Influencer marketing is becoming big. So this is word of mouth, but the mouths are coming from celebrities, are coming from Peloton fitness instructors, are coming from bloggers. They're coming, when we want to push the new item, we're going to the person that we think will give us the best recommendation. And we're seeing this shift that it's becoming influencers that we're taking these recommendations from, almost above family and friends, because they've kind of lived the experience. You feel like you're connected with them through all of their social channels, things like that.
What's amazing about that is how integrated it is now. Here, I'm going to give you a quick story. 2 weeks ago, I'm building out a van to be a camper van. I'm doing it myself. It's totally out of my league, but
I
I'm
have
doing
a
it.
friend who's done that. So if you want,
Yeah, I know. And so thank God there are people who've done this before. So there's one website that I go to, 2 engineers quit their jobs so that they can build out their van and catalog every single thing they did with every Amazon link to every little doodad and doohickey and whatever. I needed that doohickey. And so I clicked on the Amazon link for that doohickey, and whoop, there it was. Whoop, it went into my cart along with the other doohickeys that I needed to go with it. And boom, it was at my house that afternoon. Okay, I didn't even know that doohickey existed. Had it not been for this couple who built out their van, who have an amazing influencer marketing presence.
yeah, it's blown up. So over the last 5 years, we've seen it's a $16 billion industry. It's increased 100% every year since that time frame. So it's pretty crazy. And I think for Target, we've worked with a lot of celebrities through like music releases and exclusive albums and that kind of stuff, but really trying to protect our culture and protect our brand. And so there's a huge vetting process, all of it, to figure out who's the right influencer that represents that there's a connection, that there's authenticity between the relationship. So it's not just paying someone to pretend that they like this brand, or, you know, those kinds of things, that it's fully integrated and that it is genuine and it's authentic in that experience. And then data science and automation. So this is huge, and it's not like it's novel in 2022, but we have, with all of that data and real-time data that we want to be able to decision off of, we can't have humans at keyboards doing the data processing and the data collection and feeds. And so we need people to be able to get the data, to create the meaning, to create the insight, to create the strategy. And so we, Target does this, but there's also 63% of companies who've adopted marketing automation report higher returns on investment. So from a business standpoint, because you can make action in near real time by removing friction in the data process, we can make decisions faster and then yield better results. So this is me in terms of my lessons learned, and I learned quite a few of these lessons, or like built the language from my time here at Bethel too. Imperfect humans, imperfect data. So we all know this, we are imperfect human beings, and with that, everything that from a data standpoint is imperfect by its very nature. And so for me, and this is a lesson that I learned in Teddy's data class, is that you can manipulate or create data to fit any narrative that you want. And so with that, you have to be very objective or call out your subjectivity when you're creating your insights and things like that, because there's no right answer. There's only data that you create meaning, and then you put your human lens on it to figure out what it means, why it's that way, those kinds of things. And so it's a pretty humbling thing being in performance insights at Target, where there's no clear-cut answer. I mean, you could have the same set of data and 5 different people would come up with something completely different. And that's okay, and that's super cool, because then you learn from each other and you probably create something better together than what you had initially analyzed. With that, analysis paralysis is a real thing. So lots of data, lots of different methodologies and ways that you can create different types of outputs. So with modeling, for example, there's tens of different ways to create a model to understand what's the likelihood of this person doing X, or what's the likelihood of, you know, me purchasing bubblegum tomorrow based on my previous history. There's so many different models to try to get to that and to analyze that data. But at the end of the day, to get out of analysis paralysis, you have to anchor onto what is the most meaningful metric that I'm going to decision off of. Is it return on ad spend? Is it social engagement? Is it viewers on NBC? What do you care the most about? And and then from there, you kind of get out of your analysis paralysis, because you kind of put your stake in the ground of like, I need to move the needle X% in return on ad spend. I'm going to focus on that metric and get out of this paralysis. And that kind of goes back to kind of imperfect humans of, you know, we're all very creative, and you can get down rabbit holes quickly. All decisions come with a price. So this could be, you know, any decision that you make utilizing data to build a strategy. There's pros, there's cons, there's rewards, there's risks. And so when you're conveying your story about data, using data, it's important to call that out and to be very honest and vulnerable. This is my recommendation, but it's got all these pros and cons in my mind, that we can have a conversation of yes or no, move forward kind of thing. And then data is for the brain, stories are for the heart. And so within an organization, when you are trying to push your recommendations forward. And I've done this where I've built this beautiful presentation and I have all of these stats, all of these data points. And then I get to the end and they're like, well, what does it all mean? And I don't have really that. And I was like, well, don't you know? Because like, look at this data point, look at that data point. And it really comes down to, you need to tell the story. You need to tell your progression of your thoughts and your progression of how that data point is influencing your decision. And then you also need to, I would recommend, because I've found success and I've seen others find success, is bring it back to the human. So bring it back to the human experience and bring it back to that creates relation and it creates connection and it creates kind of like mirror neurons. So like the way that our brains can connect together to create the story into like community. So
Next one?
I think the next one is just a quote.
Oh,
So I love Simon Sinek. I think y'all had talked with or read about him, like Start With Why and the Golden Circle TED Talk and all of those kinds of things. But I've also found in my my experience, I think you all have too, is that people aren't buying into what you do, they buy the why you do it. And I think from Target, they definitely play that where they're pulling out the why Target for you, because it's affordable, because it's easy, because it's that trend, that style that people want. And then for you as people, the why you do things is super beneficial in our work, in our life, and all of that too. So just wanted to close with that.
awesome, awesome. Well, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Chelsea, if you want to have a chair, let's open it up to conversation, including those who are on Zoom. And I'm going to put everybody up on Zoom. I'm just going to put you guys, you're going to go ahead and turn on your cameras if you'd like to. And I'm going to make you a gallery. And Chelsea, do you mind sitting in the chair up there? Because then you'll be in camera. All right. So hello, everybody. That's,
I feel like King Charles.
yes, there you go. And I'm going to open it up to questions. And folks on Zoom, we can hear your question. So, what else would you like Chelsea to tell you about?
That's a great presentation, by the way. Thanks for taking the time and showing your presentation. You talk a lot about the digital marketing in regards to branding. Do you feel like there's a space for that also in regards to Target's corporate responsibility and how it impacts just not only profit margins, but what is Target doing good for the community as well too?
Yeah, yes. We have digital marketing campaigns catered towards showcasing and building awareness of Target's sustainability and green efforts too. And so, but that is equally as important. So digital marketing is only part of the full kind of company family or marketing family. So we also have loyalty marketing areas. We have site merchandise marketing areas. We have corporate responsibility. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all of that is really important to Target's brand. And so to bring joy, everyday joy to all families, we have to think about those things. And corporate responsibility in general is a really, really large topic for what consumers care most, or not care most about, but it's something that consumers are caring more and more about when they're choosing where they're going to buy the product or which company they're going to work or, go to for services and products.
Yeah, I think that right now, I feel like that's, like you mentioned, that's where a lot of consumers are being aware of which companies are acknowledging that in regards to either decreasing the carbon input, being environmentally sustainable, an ethical product as well too. So I think that they're very, they're savvy. They have like you said, they have tools in their hand to do a lot of research on whatever product that they're purchasing.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Were campaigns like that, like corporate responsibility or diversity and inclusion, like those types of things that don't necessarily, like, that are a little, I feel like blurrier where you're tracking ROI or the return on investment, like how do you guys at Target go about when you launch a campaign like that, track and see if it's as much?
Yeah, it's not really like a sale, for example, someone's buying the product at Target. For corporate responsibility, and I can only speak on like the outskirts of that team. A lot of it then comes to like qualitative research. So surveys, focus groups, those kinds of data collections versus it being they clicked here and they did that. There may be instances where they'll have some kind of external marketing material and maybe have a learn more button, and then they'll measure like how many people went to that site, those kinds of things. So yeah, I think, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have something that's probably not related, but we're doing the Starbucks project. And then every time I think it's Starbucks, I go to Target.
Yeah.
Why Starbucks? Why not Target? Like, cause when I go to. Me and my friends, we like to go to Starbucks,
Yeah.
but then, like, there used to be no, you can go in person, you can go into drive-through. So we always go to Target to get Starbucks. And
Yeah.
then we can just go in and talk, and then walk around. And then get a Starbucks and walk around Target. So
Yeah.
that's just how, like, I get attracted by Starbucks and it's like, now that I go to Target because the other way around.
Yeah.
Like, I go to Target because of Starbucks, but then I end up buying stuff from Target.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
like,
So is your question, why do I have caribou in my hand versus Starbucks?
kind of like relationship with
Yeah.
Starbucks. Why?
Yeah, so why? Well, one, Target is a national retailer, so we've got over 2,000 stores. And Starbucks is also national/international. So purely from a partnership standpoint, they needed to make sure that they chose a coffee brand that could be present in all of their stores. And Caribou's only in the Midwest, so it definitely limits that data set or that opportunity. But the insight that was used is they know that if you're at the Target longer, you're going to spend more. And when you have a hot coffee in your hand, or through stories, the mom stories of, oh, I got to go to Target by myself, grab a hot cup of coffee and be able to just stroll the aisles on my own. Like those are kind of stories and things that they use to build those insights to know, okay, we need a coffee shop. And now you can get coffee through the drive up. You can get refills if you roam the aisles and you drink your coffee, it gets iced coffee. You can get a free refill before you leave. So that partnership's pretty cool.
Target was also at the forefront of using their retail space as consignment space to other companies. And they were doing that early on. When I was one of the managers at the Lake Street Target store way back when, there was a bakery in there. Because we had a relationship with, what was that? McGlynn's, thank you. Relationship with McGlynn's, a regional baker. So Target was always willing to use its retail space for consignment. And so having Starbucks then was just been there, done that. Let's find the right, the right mix that met our traffic goals.
Yep. Yeah. And now they've partnered with CVS for pharmacy. They try to do it on their own. CVS was better. There's Target Optical, there's doctors, there's so many different things, really creating that one-stop shop.
Zoom folks, do you have any questions? Oh, I do.
So, going back to China that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I was about that. you add inside it, and then maybe on Instagram or on Pinterest, like right now, I guess so I
Yeah.
credits to us as well.
Yeah. Are you in data analytics?
Somewhat.
Somewhat, okay. So kind of, yeah, so kind of going back to the amount of data and also there's different methodologies and things. So from an attribution standpoint, there's different ways to do it. So for the example of you go to YouTube, you end up, you view something, but then you are actually clicking on an Instagram ad and purchasing through there. That data gets collected, and then you can identify anonymously where the purchase happened. Was it in store or was it online? And then you apply some kind of multi-linear attribution. So within this specific cohort of customer journeys, you start to allocate the sale percentages to that individual channel that you believe gave credit. So I will only go as high level as that or as deep as that. So you're basically allocating where you weight the decision. So where did that decision to purchase come from versus where did it actually happen within the marketing journey? Yeah.
What she's touching on is, so for my data analytics students right now, that is the kind of things that we do with the modeling. You're doing simple regression modeling this week in your assignment. But as you look at Jump Pro, there's a lot more complicated things. And those are the kind of tools that are used to do the kind of work that Chelsea is talking about. Zoom folks, any questions? Oh, Kayla, is your hand raised? Kayla, do you have your hand up?
I didn't intend to. If it's up, I don't know how to take it down.
Well, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, but I'll let you know if I think of one.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What are the challenges that you came up with in digital marketing or like data analytics in that your everyday work?
Yeah, I'd say there's a few. The way the data is organized and processed can be challenging because, well, it's a lot of data and there's engineers and there's process that goes into being able to organize the data the way that you need it. So that becomes challenging where if you're using data to then visualize it in another tool, like the time it takes to build some of that stuff slows you down. So moving from, so we work a lot with data scientists, with engineers, with product owners. We live in like an agile scrum type product management world. And so just things take time when you want to build new products or build new solutioning. I'm sure all of you feel that in your worlds too, but so that's challenging. In my world, I live in this in-betweener where I work at Target, but my clients are the Procter & Gamble's, the Unilevers, the Apples, the Disneys of the world, that they have their own marketing strategy and they have their own tech set and data set. And so our team kind of is in this middle spot where we're needing to meet target goals, but also meeting these client goals as well. And so imperfect humans, imperfect data, we have to build a really strong partnership to make sure that we're fully aligned on what we're going to deliver, how we're going to deliver it, and what we'll provide. A lot of relationships.
Next question. Kristen, I know you have a zillion questions. You're just being polite.
I don't have anything offhand, actually. I think it was a really thorough presentation. It was very interesting. But thanks for calling me out, Dr. H. I appreciate it.
Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
What was your, I don't know, like biggest takeaway from your experience at Bethel? I mean, I don't know if it's specific to this class or just overall.
Yeah. Oh, so kind of early, Teddy had mentioned that like this kind of catapulted my career. So when I started my Bethel program in like, which baby did I have? 2017. So my second daughter was 6 months old. I was an individual contributor and I was working at an agency. And I knew like my career goals, I wanted to be a people leader. I wanted to, my whole reason for entering the program, I wanted to sharpen my skills to create my undergrad into a more applicable learning. And I felt like the higher level grad program did that. So Bethel does a great job where it's like, they're teaching you data analytics, but they're teaching you like, as a leader and as a manager, how do you decision off of that? Or how do you think about the 10,000 foot view for the company and what you're doing? And it kind of, it helped me kind of level up my thinking to be able to know, okay, I'm a marketer, but I can pull from why does finance care about this? Because I learned what NPS scores mean. Or I know what accounting cares about. I know what data analytics care about. I know what marketing cares about. I know what strategy cares about. So you kind of get that you don't really get in undergrad, because in undergrad, it's just a different experience because you don't have lived experience, right? Second part, I chose Bethel because of the faith integration. Because I was struggling in my career for how do I make sense of my identity in Christ with what I'm doing as a marketer. And the education that Bethel provides, and we are all Christians, and but it does have that as its anchor. And so I knew that I needed help in that area to figure out how do I integrate this identity that is my only identity, but without having to like become a pastor or become an evangelist or whatever. Like I know that I love marketing, I love where I'm at, but how do I blend that faith into it? And that helped me create more authenticity in the workplace. I was able to feel more like myself and feel like I didn't have to put on a different face because this is me, and now I know me better through the classes with all the tests and the kind of self-awareness reflections that you do through your studies too. So that was really big for me too. So sharpening my skills in business and then integrating my faith into my career.
What I'm thrilled to hear you talk about is identity. Because that's a really important part of what our outcomes are with you as our students. Is we want you to better understand who you really are at this point in your life, who you really are, and what are the foundations that you're standing on that are your core beliefs. And it isn't, while we're expressing things and explaining things from an ethical standpoint through a biblical worldview, we're not demanding that on anybody. And I'll come alongside anybody, no matter what their faith orientation is, even if they're an atheist, and I've had atheists in my classes before, to help them ground themselves in what do they truly believe, and how does their core beliefs then play out in how they lead. And I think that's a core competency of Bethel's MBA program and the MASL program. That's one of our core competencies.
I didn't know that formally, so.
Because we don't talk about it a lot, we just do it.
Yeah, you just do it. Yeah, you can feel it.
Yep. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
For those in the marketing class, I'm curious what companies you're doing. So you mentioned Starbucks.
Yeah, so am I, by the way. If the other two teams that haven't told me yet. Or only one team hasn't told me now.
We're in Netflix.
Netflix,
Mhm.
cool. Starbucks, Netflix,
Another one's doing Amazon shopping.
okay.
And if anybody is on for the fourth group that I don't know what you're doing, would you like to pop in and let me know? I'm listening. Oh, tell them about your direct
yeah.
connection with the Rosewood case.
Yes, yes. Well, first, my group did Subaru, and I loved studying Subaru. It was a really cool company to analyze. I went to the Rosewood Turtle Creek Hotel in Dallas in April. So I was going down there to go to Waco for the Magnolia Joanna Gaines Chip Gaines Village. And we stayed at Turtle Creek Rosewood, and it was amazing. I didn't know until I got there, and because my mom booked it, and I saw the Rosewood Turtle Creek, and I was like, oh my gosh, this was the case study that we did. I snapped a picture, I sent it to Teddy Ann. So it's real. They are Rosewood Turtle Creek. So
They are now.
they are now, yeah. So, and I was definitely not the clientele. We used credit card points. We're like coming in our rental vehicle, and people are in some very high-end vehicles, different bracket. So, but it was really cool to experience and kind of feel the study through that.
Experience it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been there once too. I was staying at a hotel nearby for a conference, and I rented one of the little, the little scooters. Okay, and I went tooling around the Turtle Creek neighborhood until I found the Rosewood Hotel, and then I parked my little scooter, and I went walking around the whole complex, and I too knew I was not their target audience. But it was cool to experience the place in my tiny way.
Yeah.
All right, anything else, everyone? Zoom folks, anything else? All right, well, let's give Chelsea a round of applause for how much I appreciate. This is the second time that you've come into the classroom, or the first time we had to do it on Zoom.
Yeah, fun one.
But for her to come into the classroom, she's the mother of 3. She has a very demanding job, and yet she still invests in us as fellow Bethel community, which I deeply appreciate. I suspect that if any of you want to connect with you on LinkedIn, she's happy to do that. And also, did you notice the subtle plug for the Bethel alumni?
I did.
Yeah, when you graduate, please don't forget that there is that network out there. There's a LinkedIn group right now, this Bethel alum. There's another LinkedIn group that is MBAs, and just know it's of value to stay connected with Bethel alums, particularly the MBA program, especially as you seek to move in different places in your career, because they are people who are out there doing something similar to what you might want to be doing. And while they might not be able to connect you directly with a job offer, they will be able to speak into what you need to know as you seek that kind of position. So allow them to be a part of your resources. And I thank you for being a part of that board too, because you've got a lot of things going on and you're still doing that. All right. So with that, Zoom folks, I'm going to end the meeting, and I thank you for being there with us. And and until the next announcement you get from me. All right.
Thank you.
You bet. So long, everyone.